Have you thought about giving up? Have you felt like the waiting has stretched far beyond what your heart can endure? There are nights when silence feels louder than any answer, when prayers seem to rise but never return with clarity. In those moments, it's easy to believe the story has ended, or worse, that it was never meant to begin. But what if the silence is not emptiness? What if it is preparation? Throughout history, the greatest love stories were never rushed. Think of Romeo and Juliet, a tale of passion shaped by timing and destiny, though tragic in its unfolding. Or consider the patient devotion in Pride and Prejudice, where misunderstanding and delay refined the hearts involved before love could fully bloom. Even in sacred narratives, waiting has always been part of divine orchestration. In the Bible, seasons of silence often preceded miracles. So what if your waiting is not rejection, but alignment? You see delay, heaven sees positioning. You feel distance, heaven is building depth. You experience uncertainty, heaven is weaving precision. Every tear you have cried has not been wasted. Every whispered prayer has been recorded. Every dream you dared to hold on to, even when logic told you to let go, has meaning. Divine timing does not operate on human urgency. It moves according to wisdom far beyond our limited sight. When everything seems stuck, when communication feels frozen, when circumstances look immovable, that is often when the unseen work is at its peak. Roots grow in silence before trees break through the soil. Foundations are laid underground before buildings rise toward the sky. This person, they still carry a spiritual imprint connected to your story. Not by accident, not by coincidence, but by design. Some connections are not random attractions, they are assignments, and assignments require preparation on both sides. The question is not whether God has forgotten. He hasn't. The question is, will you trust long enough to see what He is forming behind the curtain of quiet? Are you truly ready to give up on a story that may be one chapter away from breakthrough? Or will you dare to believe, just one more time, that the impossible is closer than it appears? Sometimes faith is not loud. Sometimes it is simply the decision to stay.
Staying does not mean clinging in desperation. It means standing in quiet confidence. It means choosing trust over panic, surrender over control. There is a profound difference between forcing something to happen and allowing God to unfold what He has already written. You may not see movement, you may not hear reassurance, but unseen growth is still growth. Just as winter hides the labor of spring beneath frozen ground, this season may be concealing preparation you cannot yet perceive. Hearts are being refined, pride is being softened, timing is being adjusted with precision you could never calculate on your own. Sometimes we want the promise without the process, yet the process is what shapes you into someone capable of sustaining the promise. Love that is rushed often collapses under pressure. Love that is refined through waiting carries depth, resilience, and spiritual maturity. Ask yourself honestly, if it happened today, are you truly ready? Not just emotionally, but spiritually. Have you healed what needed healing? Have you surrendered what needed surrendering? Have you become the version of yourself that can receive what you have been praying for? Divine love stories are not built on fantasy. They are built on transformation. While you have been longing for them, God has also been working on you, strengthening your discernment, deepening your patience, expanding your capacity to love without fear. And perhaps at this very moment, He is doing the same with that person. There is a sacred mystery in not knowing exactly how it will unfold. Faith is not certainty about the details, it is confidence in the author. When you trust the author, you don't panic over unfinished chapters. You understand that tension is part of storytelling. This pause is not punishment, it is preparation. This distance is not denial, it is design. This silence is not abandonment, it is alignment. But remember something important. Trusting does not mean losing yourself. It does not mean waiting passively without growth. Continue building your life. Continue pursuing purpose. Continue becoming whole on your own. If the story is truly ordained, it will not require you to shrink, beg, or betray your peace. So ask yourself again, not from fear, but from faith. Are you ready to release control and trust the unfolding? Are you willing to believe that what feels impossible today may be inevitable tomorrow?
And steadfastness is not weakness, it is quiet strength. It is the courage to remain anchored when emotions try to pull you in every direction. It is the discipline to guard your heart without hardening it. Many people confuse surrender with giving up, but they are not the same. Giving up is rooted in fear. Surrender is rooted in trust. There will be moments when doubt whispers, "Move on, it's over, you imagined it all." Doubt is loud. Faith is often gentle. Yet faith carries a weight that doubt never can. Faith does not need constant evidence. It rests in assurance. If this connection was born from something deeper than impulse, if it awakened growth, conviction, prayer, and transformation within you, then it was never meaningless. Even if the outcome looks different than you expect, nothing God uses for your shaping is wasted. But here is a truth that requires maturity. Sometimes the miracle is reunion. Sometimes the miracle is redirection, and sometimes the miracle is revelation, seeing clearly what you once saw through emotion. Trusting God means trusting Him with the outcome, not just the desire. Love reserved by God will never require you to chase what runs from you. It will never demand that you compromise your values or silence your intuition. What is divinely aligned may be tested, but it will not be toxic. It may be delayed, but it will not be destructive. While you are waiting, build your inner world, strengthen your character, deepen your relationship with God beyond the request for this one story. Let your prayers shift from "bring them back" to "shape me for what you have written." That shift alone changes everything. Because when your identity is rooted in God, not in a person, you become unshakable. Whether this love story unfolds exactly as you imagine or transforms into something greater than you envisioned, you will stand secure. And if heaven truly is working behind the scenes, aligning circumstances, softening hearts, orchestrating timing, you won't need to force a single step. Doors will open without manipulation, conversations will flow without strain, clarity will replace confusion. So before you decide to walk away, pause, not in desperation, but in discernment. Are you being called to release or to remain? Only peace can answer that honestly. If peace tells you to trust one more time, then trust boldly. If peace tells you to let go, then let go faithfully. And when you truly understand that nothing written by His hand is random, something inside you begins to soften. The anxiety loosens its grip. The urgency quiets. You stop trying to predict every outcome and instead learn to rest in the unfolding. There is a sacred power in rest. Not the kind of rest that comes from giving up, but the kind that comes from knowing you are held. When you trust that God is intentional, you stop interpreting every delay as rejection. You begin to see pauses as protection. You begin to recognize that some prayers are not answered immediately because the timing itself is part of the blessing. What if the delay has been shielding you from a version of this story that would have broken you? What if the space between you has been the very thing shaping both hearts into something stable, grounded, and spiritually mature? Love ordained by God does not collapse under waiting. It is strengthened by it. It does not fade because of distance. It clarifies through it. When something carries divine purpose, it will survive seasons that ordinary attachments cannot. But here is where courage is required. You must release the illusion of control. You cannot force realization. You cannot rush awakening. You cannot manipulate divine timing. The more you try to grip it tightly, the more restless your spirit becomes. Instead, open your hands. Say, "God, if this love is from you, sustain it. If it is not, remove it gently." That kind of prayer shifts everything. It transforms desperation into devotion. It turns obsession into surrender. And surrender invites peace. You may not know what tomorrow holds. You may not know how the pieces will fit together. But you do know this: the same God who planted this hope in your heart is capable of fulfilling it or replacing it with something far greater. Do not measure the story by the silence. Measure it by the growth you have experienced because of it. Measure it by how much deeper your faith has become. Measure it by the strength you did not know you possessed until you were required to wait.
Sometimes the greatest proof that something is sacred is the refinement it demands. So breathe, trust, continue living fully, continue loving God more than the outcome. And if this love truly bears His mark, you will not miss it. What is meant for you will not pass you by. The impossible does not announce itself loudly. It often arrives after the longest silence.
And when it arrives, it will not feel chaotic. It will feel certain. Not because every question has been answered, but because your spirit will recognize alignment. There is a difference between emotional excitement and spiritual confirmation. One is loud and fleeting. The other is steady and undeniable. If this love carries heaven's signature, it will return with clarity, not confusion. It will come with peace, not pressure. You will not have to decode mixed signals or chase half-hearted effort. What is divinely restored does not play games with your heart. But until that moment comes, your responsibility is not to monitor the outcome. Your responsibility is to guard your faith. Do not let disappointment rewrite your belief system. Do not let delay convince you that you were foolish for hoping. Hope is not weakness. Hope is evidence that your heart is still alive, and a living heart is far more powerful than a protected one. Sometimes God allows you to feel the weight of uncertainty so that you learn where your true security lies. If your stability depends entirely on another person's actions, your peace will always be fragile. But when your foundation is anchored in God, even unanswered prayers cannot shake you. This is the hidden lesson of waiting. It reveals what you truly worship. Do you worship the promise or the one who made it possible? Do you cling to the person or trust the author of both your lives? There is maturity in saying, "I desire this deeply, but I desire God's will more." That sentence alone transforms longing into worship. And here is something beautiful. When you surrender like that, fear loses its power. You are no longer afraid of losing them because you understand that what is meant for you cannot be taken. You are no longer terrified of silence because you know silence does not equal absence. Heaven is never idle. Even when you cannot see movement, adjustments are being made. Conversations you do not hear, realizations you do not witness, doors closing that would have led you into pain, doors preparing to open at the exact right second. So if you are standing at the edge of giving up, pause once more, not to force the story, but to realign your heart. Choose trust again, not because it is easy, but because it is powerful. The impossible does not require your control, it requires your faith. And faith, even as small as a whisper, can move what looks permanently unmoved. Faith, even when it trembles, is still faith. It does not have to roar to be real. Sometimes it is simply the quiet decision to believe again after disappointment, the quiet decision to pray again after silence, the quiet decision to hope again after tears. There is something sacred about a heart that refuses to become bitter. Bitterness says, "I will never open up like that again." Faith says, "I will remain open, but wiser." Bitterness builds walls. Faith builds strength. If this story has stretched you, challenged you, and brought you to your knees in prayer, then it has already served a holy purpose. You are not the same person you were at the beginning of this journey. You have grown. You have matured. You have faced your insecurities and wrestled with your fears. And growth like that is never accidental. Maybe the true miracle was never just about being united with them. Maybe it was about being reunited with yourself, your patience, your depth, your dependence on God. Sometimes God uses a person to awaken parts of you that were sleeping. But if He awakened it, He also knows how to complete it. The waiting season is not empty space. It is sacred training. It teaches you endurance. It teaches you surrender. It teaches you how to love without possession and trust without guarantees. These are not small lessons. They are foundations for something lasting. And if the reunion happens, you will enter it differently. Not desperate, not afraid of losing it, but grounded, whole,
secure in who you are and in who guides your life. And if the story shifts in a direction you did not expect, you will still stand. Because your faith was never built on one outcome. It was built on a faithful God. So ask yourself one final time, are you giving up because peace is leading you forward, or because fear is pushing you away? There is a difference. If peace says release, release with grace. If peace says remain, remain with courage. Either way, trust that nothing you entrusted to God is ever mishandled. No prayer is ignored, no tear unseen, no love story forgotten. What is written for you will find you. And when it does, you will understand why the wait was necessary.
And when understanding finally comes, it will not arrive with noise or spectacle. It will come like dawn, slowly, gently, undeniably. One moment you are still questioning everything, and the next, clarity begins to settle into your spirit. You realize that every delay carried intention, every tear carried transformation, every unanswered message, every restless night, every whispered prayer was shaping something far deeper than you knew. You begin to see that God was not withholding love from you. He was protecting it, protecting you, protecting the timing. Because love given too early can be mishandled. Love restored too soon can be misunderstood. But love delivered at the appointed time carries weight, maturity, and stability. And here is the quiet truth. If this person truly carries the spiritual mark of something reserved for you, distance cannot erase it. Confusion cannot cancel it. Time cannot destroy what God has sealed. What is divinely woven into your story may bend, may stretch, may pass through fire, but it will not break. But if it was only meant to awaken you and not to stay, then even that was mercy. Not every powerful connection is permanent. Some are prophetic. They enter your life to shift you, refine you, awaken your standards, deepen your faith, and then they step back. That does not make them meaningless. It makes them purposeful. The beauty of trusting God fully is this: you no longer fear either outcome. If reunion comes, you will receive it with gratitude, not desperation. If redirection comes, you will accept it with peace, not resentment. Because your confidence will no longer rest in the person, it will rest in the author. And when your trust is anchored there, you become unshakable. You stop chasing signs, you stop obsessing over timelines, you stop interpreting silence as failure. Instead, you walk forward in quiet assurance that nothing aligned by God can miss you. So breathe deeply, release the pressure. Continue becoming the highest version of yourself. Continue loving with purity, praying with sincerity, and living with courage. The impossible does not require striving. It requires alignment. And when alignment meets divine timing, what once felt unreachable will unfold naturally, without force, without fear, without confusion. Your story is not stalled. It is being written carefully. And what God writes, He finishes beautifully.
And when He finishes it, you will look back and realize that nothing was ever truly delayed, only developed. What felt like stagnation was actually strengthening. What felt like distance was divine calibration. You were not abandoned in the silence. You were being anchored within it. There is a sacred reshaping that happens when you stop asking, "When will this happen?" and start asking, "Who am I becoming through this?" That shift transforms waiting from suffering into sanctification. It turns longing into leadership over your own emotions. It teaches you mastery over fear. Because the truth is, love that is meant to last must meet a version of you that is ready to sustain it. If this story unfolds, it will not be because you chased it into existence. It will be because both of you were shaped enough to carry it responsibly. Divine alignment is not built on emotion alone. It is built on readiness. And readiness is forged in hidden seasons. Right now, while you are learning patience, perhaps they are learning courage. While you are learning surrender, perhaps they are learning clarity. While you are learning trust, perhaps they are learning how to choose without hesitation. You may not see each other's growth, but growth does not require visibility to be real. That is the mystery of divine orchestration: separate processes, one purpose. But here's the deeper invitation. Do not put your life on hold. The wait was never meant to pause your destiny. Continue building your calling. Continue expanding your mind. Continue deepening your relationship with God beyond this one desire. The more whole you become independently, the healthier any reunion will be. If it is meant, it will meet you while you are moving, not while you are stuck. And if it is not meant, you will not collapse, because you have learned to stand on something stronger than a person's presence. You have learned to stand on promise, not preference. So let your heart remain open, but anchored. Let your hope remain alive, but surrendered. Let your faith remain bold, but peaceful. The impossible does not require anxiety. It requires agreement with heaven's timing. One day, whether through reunion or redirection, you will see the full picture. And when you do, you will whisper with gratitude, "Now I understand." Until then, trust the process, trust the shaping, trust the silence.
And completion, when it comes, will not feel rushed. It will feel right. There is a quiet rightness that only God can orchestrate, a harmony between timing, growth, and peace. You will not have to convince yourself that it makes sense. Your spirit will recognize it before your mind fully understands it. This is why the waiting matters so much. Waiting strips away illusion. It exposes motives. It refines desire. At the beginning, perhaps you wanted this story because it felt beautiful, exciting, or rare. But after the stretching, after the tears, after the wrestling in prayer, you want it only if it is truly from God. That is maturity. That is alignment. You no longer ask, "How can I make this happen?" You ask, "God, is this still yours?" And that question changes everything. Because when something is truly His, you do not have to manipulate circumstances. You do not have to compete with others. You do not have to prove your worth. What carries divine intention will come with divine confirmation. In the meantime, guard your heart from comparison. Do not measure your timeline against someone else's relationship. Do not let social media illusions convince you that everyone else is ahead. Your story is not late. It is layered. And layers take time. There are chapters you cannot skip, lessons you cannot bypass, depth you cannot fake. And perhaps the greatest gift of this entire journey is that you are learning to love without fear of loss. When you truly surrender something to God, you stop gripping it tightly. You trust that if it is meant, it will remain. And if it leaves, it was never yours to keep. That freedom is powerful. It allows you to smile again without pretending. It allows you to move forward without bitterness. It allows you to pray for them, not from desperation, but from genuine care. That kind of love is rare. That kind of faith is strong. So stand firm, not in stubborn attachment, but in surrendered trust. If this love story is written in heaven, no earthly confusion can erase it. And if heaven has written something different, it will exceed what you imagined. Either way, you are not forgotten. Either way, you are being guided. And one day, when the final page of this chapter turns, you will see that the silence was never empty. It was sacred.
Sacred seasons rarely feel sacred while you are inside them. They often feel uncertain, stretched, even lonely. But holiness is not always loud. Sometimes it is hidden in ordinary days, when you choose discipline over despair, prayer over panic, trust over control. There is something deeply transformative about not knowing the outcome and still choosing to believe in God's goodness. That kind of faith reshapes your character. It purifies your intentions. It detaches your heart from idols and reattaches it to truth. Because if we are honest, sometimes we do not just want love. We want reassurance, validation, certainty. We want to feel chosen. We want to feel secure. And when one person becomes the symbol of all those desires, the weight placed on them becomes enormous. But no human being was designed to carry the weight that only God can hold. This waiting season gently teaches you that your worth is not proven by someone's pursuit. Your value is not determined by someone's timing. You are chosen long before any relationship confirms it. You are loved long before anyone returns your affection. When you internalize that truth, desperation fades, anxiety loosens. You stop trying to decode every sign or overanalyze every silence. You become steady. And steadiness is attractive, not just to a person, but to destiny itself. If reunion is part of your story, it will meet a version of you that is no longer frantic but faithful. It will meet a heart that has learned restraint, clarity, and self-respect. It will meet someone who can love deeply without losing themselves. And if the story shifts, you will not shatter, because your identity is no longer anchored in the outcome. It is anchored in divine love that does not fluctuate. So let this season finish its work in you. Let it teach you patience that cannot be shaken. Let it build confidence that does not depend on attention. Let it deepen your relationship with God beyond this single desire. You are not behind. You are becoming, and becoming takes time. One day, whether through fulfillment or redirection, you will look back and realize that this was the season that strengthened your soul the most, the season that refined your faith, the season that proved you could trust God even when your heart felt vulnerable. And that kind of trust, it prepares you for something far greater than you can currently see.